Sri Gurubhyo Namaha children, you are welcome for online class, class 9, that is our fifth prose lesson we are seeing. Water the elixir, this is the third part for you, and in the second part you learned that how when a flow of water is more and excessive, you will be just facing the soil erosion. So we were just learning that children, we will continue the class. This is our part 3 now. Part 2 we learned that how useful water is, and the excessive water brings soil erosion and we have to take some steps to stop it. So that was the thing we have stopped, and we will see what are the other things. We will continue the class. The menace which soil erosion presents to the continuance of successful agriculture is an alarming one in many parts of India, calling urgently for attention and preventive action. The terracing of land, construction of bunds. So here the menacing, what is menace? The dangers we are going to face because of soil erosion. So the menace, the danger which soil erosion presents to continuance of a success agriculture is an alarming one in many parts of India. So you know that the danger of soil erosion, and because of that there will be lot of, if it continues for a soil erosion, and in that place there won't be an agriculture. So that is an alarming one in all over India. So parts of India, calling urgently for attention and preventive action. For this the call is been given, and calling attention and prevention action. So they have to be very attentive attention and take preventive steps to stop that soil erosion. The terracing of land, what we have to do? The terracing of land we have to do, and we have to constructions of bunds, we have to do construction of bunds to stop the soil erosion. To check the flow of water, the practice of counter cultivation and the planting of appropriate types of vegetation are amongst the measures that have been suggested. It is obvious that the aim should be to check the flow of water at the earliest possible stage before it has acquired any appreciable momentum and corresponding large destructive power. So before great destruction is taking place, what we have to do? We have to stop the water flow and to check the flow of water, and the practice of contour cultivation. You know contour cultivation. So there must be a change in the cultivation and the planting of appropriate type of vegetation for the soil. So there will be first they will be cultivating some vegetable, and the next with the thing, and like that, because there will be cultivation, some will be absorbing some minerals, and later the next crop will be absorbing some other minerals. So there will be an equivalent mineral and other fertile things in the soil. So it will be planned in such a cycle, the agriculture must be done. So here we have to take that steps. The measure that have been suggested, that is the measure they have been suggested, and it is obvious that the aim should be to check the flow of water the earliest possible. The flow of water must be checked as early as possible, and the stage before it has acquired any appreciable momentum and corresponding large destructive power. So before any great destruction, it must be in the initial stage we have to check the flow of water so that it will be stopped the greater thing. How can soil erosion be prevented? How we can prevent soil erosion? Water is the basis of all life. Every animal or a plant contains of substantial proportion of free or combined water in its body, and no kind of physiological activity is possible in which the fluid does not play an essential part. So what is that? Whatever is there, the important is water. Without water there won't be any essential thing will be taken in agriculture. So both man, animal, both are needed this water, and contains a substantial proportion of free or combined water in the body, in its body. So the plant as well as animals, they having water content in their body, and no kind of physiological activity is possible in which the fluid does not play an essential part. So if in a body if there is no water content, the thing will not take place. So, any activity will not be possible. So, water is of course necessary for animal life, while moisture in the soil is equally imperative for the life and growth of plants and trees, though the quantity necessary varies enormously with the species. So, here it is whether animal or a plant, they need water because their body contains water and both is needed water, and it is very essential thing in the world. Water is an essential thing in the world and varies enormously with the species. It varies whether they want more water or less water. The plants need more water or less water. It depends upon the species. The conservation and utilization of water, we have to do a conservation of water. The conservation or utilization of water is thus fundamental for human welfare. Apart from Austrian water, the ultimate source in all cases is rain or snowfall. Much of Indian agriculture depends on seasonal rainfall and is therefore very sensitive to any failure or irregularity of the same. The problems of soil erosion and of inadequate or irregular rainfall are, so what it is, the most of the thing is depend on water, agriculture or whether animals, they need water and it depends on their life on the water. And we have other things called the conservation and utilization of water is thus fundamental for human welfare. So, if a human being want to live nice and if the human welfare is considered, the water content must be more. So, if it is there, the utilization and conservation of water is taken place correctly, it will be a welfare for human being. Apart from artesian water, the ultimate source is all cases is rain or snowfall. So, here apart from artesian waters, there are artesian waters, and apart from that the rain fed water is very important and it is very useful whether it is rain or snowfall. Much of the Indian agriculture depends on seasonal rainfall. It depends on the seasonal rainfall and is therefore very sensitive, and it's therefore very sensitive to any failure or irregularity of the same. If it is irregular, if we are not getting more rainfall, we will be facing all troubles. We will be facing all the thing we can't do agriculture, and there will be a trouble and there will be a problem in the welfare of human being. The problem of soil erosion and inadequate or irregular rainfall are, okay, you can see the dams, construction of dams, how they have just made this, all rainwater will be saved. So, clear that the adoption of techniques preventing soil erosion would also help to conserve and keep the water where it is wanted. In other words, on and in the soil, and such techniques therefore serve a double purpose. So, here you can see that clear that the adoption of techniques is very essential, and preventing soil erosion would also help to conserve and keep the water where it is wanted. In other words, on and in the soil, and such techniques therefore serve a double purpose. If the techniques are very good and it is working out, we can see the double purpose. So, clear that the adoption of techniques preventing soil erosion. So, we must adopt the techniques of preventing the soil erosion would also help the conserve. So, it will be just conserve and keep the water where it is wanted. So, it will be conserve and keep the water where it is wanted, and in other words, on and in the soil, and such techniques therefore serve a double purpose. It will be serving a double purpose. So, here sometimes water is very important, at the same time we must not lose water. When rainwater is there, we have to save in man-made tanks, or if you just making it to flow where two ways, water is lost, and on the other hand we will be just losing the soil, fertile soil, and there will be a chance for soil erosion. So, we have to take step. When you are taking step for the soil erosion, we are consuming water, we are just saving the water as well as we are saving the soil too, and it is a safe, it will be a double purpose. It is evident, however, that in a country having only a seasonal rainfall, so it is evident, however, that in a country having only a seasonal rainfall, an immense quantity of rainwater must necessarily run off the ground. So, it is evident however that in a country having only a seasonal rainfall, an immense quantity of rainwater must necessarily run off the ground. The collection and utilization of this water is therefore of a vital importance. Much of it flows down into the stream and rivers and ultimately finds its way to the sea. So, the collection and utilization of this water is therefore a vital importance. So, it is a vital importance and it is very important, and much of its flow down into the stream and rivers and ultimately finds its way to the sea. So, here what the water river will be just flowing, and when it flows, what happens? It will be just running away, and it will be just going and join in the sea. And we have to take necessary steps to make that stop somewhere, and so that it will be a very important source for human being. Much of its flow down into the stream and rivers and ultimately finds its way to the sea. Incredibly large quantity of the precious fluid are thus lost to the country. The harnessing of our rivers, the waters of which now mostly run to waste, is a great national problem which must be considered and dealt with on national lines. Vast areas of land which at present are mere scrub jungle could be turned into fertile and prosperous country by courageous and well planned action. So, here the author says very clearly that if you are saving the water and the river water or steam water which is just flowing and it is just stopping in a sea, and if it stops somewhere and it is utilized for the agriculture, it will be a development for the nation. And the same way he says that the vast areas of land which at present are mere scrub jungles, so scrubs will be grown and jungles will be there, and that place all been cultivated, and it will be really prosperous for the country. And if you are having courageous and well planned action, so nation will be a developed one, and it will be very flourishing in agriculture. So, here we have all jungle places and water is flowing in the sea. So, this steps have been taken. At the same time, when rain comes before in hand, if you are taking steps to make man-made tanks, and it has been cleared and kept properly, and we can use the rainwater for the thing, because most part of India is doing agriculture with this rainwater, by the rainwater only. So, it will be very useful, the author says very clearly to us. Okay children, we will go to the next. Closely connected with the conservation of water supplies is the problem of afforestation. The systematic planting of suitable trees in every possible or even in impossible areas, and the development of what one can call civilized forest or distinguished from the wild and untamed jungle, is one of the most urgent needs of India. So, the author says very clearly, closely connected with conservation of water supplies. So, which is conservation of water supply is the problem of afforestation. So, the problem of afforestation, when you cut more trees, then there will be no rain. If there is no rain, there is no agriculture. So, it is like a cycle, and if you stop somewhere, you will be having some problems. So, that only the author saying. The systematic planting of suitable trees in every possible or even in impossible areas, and the development of what one can call civilized forest as distinguished from wild and untamed jungles. So, there are a lot of jungles, and man-made jungles also is there. If we are planning and planted in a right way, we will be just getting the use of it, and it will be very helpful for the nation. As distinguished from wild and untamed jungle, sometimes it will be wild and untamed jungle, is one of the most urgent needs of India. So, the India needs, it is very urgent need that man-made jungles. So, as distinguished from wild and untamed jungle. Such plantation would directly and indirectly prove a source of untold wealth to the country. So, it may be directly or indirectly prove a source of untold wealth for the nation. So, you know that sometimes what will happen, if you plant a tree, it will be giving fruit and the stem and other thing, and it is direct thing, and indirectly you will be getting rain. So, that is also, both will be there in the nation, and the nation will be developing nicely with the agriculture. They would check soil erosion and conserve the rainfall of the country from flowing away to waste, and would provide the necessary supplies of the cheap fuel, and thus render unnecessary the wasteful conversion of farmyard manure into the form of fuel. So here he says that they would check soil erosion. One way, if you are growing more tree, it will check the soil erosion and conserve the rainfall of the country from flowing away to waste. So we can conserve the rainfall and instead of flowing away from to the waste, we can stop and make use of it, and would provide the necessary supplies. We can provide necessary supplies of cheap fuel. So when more trees are growing, we will be getting a cheap fuel, and thus it helps us unnecessary the wasteful conversion of farmyard manure into the form of fuel. So instead of, it is not only a farm, it is helpful in fuel also, and it is stopping afforestation, and it is stopping the rain water just going and wasting, and at the same time it provides rain also. So in that way it is very useful. The measure necessary to control the movement of water and conserve the supplies of it can also serve subsidiary purpose of value to the life of the countryside. By far the cheapest form of internal transport in the country is by boats and barges through canals and rivers. We hear much about programs of rails and roads construction, but far too little about the development of internal waterways in India. Then away, the harnessing of water supplies usually also make possible the development of hydroelectric power. The availability of electric power would make the tremendous difference to the life of the countryside and enable rural economic to be improved in various directions. So again the author says very clearly, the measure necessary to control the movement, when you take the measure to control the unnecessary movement, control of water and conserve the supplies of it, can also save subsidiary purpose of value to the life of all the countryside. So on the countryside also we can save. By the far the cheapest form of internal transport, they will be having internal transport in a country is by boat and barges through canals and rivers. So we hear much about programs of rails and road constructions. We are taking a rails and roads constructions, but far too little about the development of internal waterways in India. So here he says that we are taking our roads and railway construction transportation. We can see even the waterways of development in India also. Then again the harnessing of water supply usually also make possible the development of hydroelectric. If more water is saved, what will happen? There will be a hydroelectric power and would make the tremendous difference to the life. There will be a tremendous difference to the life of the countryside and enable rural economy to improve in various directions. When the village is developed one, usually the rural development also will be raising. So here he gives an idea that we can have a hydroelectricity, so they will be getting electricity power, as well as the people will be getting job, and they also will be used to that, and there will be water is used, so it is not wasted. So that had been converted to a usage, so it will be very useful for the nation. In one sense, water is the commonest of liquid. At last he says, in one sense, water is the commonest of liquid. In another sense, it is the most uncommon of liquids with amazing properties which are responsible for its unique power of maintaining animal and plant life. The investigation of nature and properties of water is therefore of the highest scientific interest and is far from an exhaustive field of search. So he says that in one sense water is commonest of liquid. It is the commonest liquid, and it can be having a common man can have in a regular day life. So each and everyone know what is a water, and it is getting in everywhere. In another sense, it is the most uncommon liquid. It is also a most uncommon liquids with amazing properties which are responsible for its unique power of maintaining animal and plant life. You know that if you are taken water, animal also needed, a plant also needed, and human being also is needed. It is a unique one. The investigation of the nature and properties of water is therefore of the highest scientific interest and is far from an exhausted field of research. So, water is a very unique one and it is very important, and the investigation of the nature and property of water is therefore of the highest scientific interest and is far from an exhausted field of research. It is needed for a research. It is a liquid, we will say it is common available, but it is also highly useful, and it is in its nature and property of water is therefore the highest scientific interest and is far from an exhausted field of research. It must be done a lot of research. So, you can see this, the great Pacific garbage patch. It is the world's largest collection of floating trash. It is in the Pacific Ocean between Hawaii and California and is often described as larger than Texas. Approximately 7 million tons of plastic and other debris is up to 9 feet deep or floating. My estimation, 80% of the plastic originates from land floating in river to the ocean, and the remaining 20% of plastic originated from oil platforms and ships. These trashes files are the biggest threat to the sea animals. So, these are the threat to the sea animals. So, when we are throwing plastics in the land, when water flow or rain flow is there, it will be just taking all those things to the sea, and 80% of plastics is from this, and 20% the ship and the oil things which they are using will be there. So, that must be stopped. Okay children, so far we have learnt about the lesson. We will see about the author and just finish the lesson. So, who is the author? The author of the lesson is Sir Chandrasekhara Venkata Raman. He was born on 7th November 1888 and he died on 21st November 1970. He was an Indian physicist born in Tiruchirappalli. He carried out groundbreaking works in the field of light scattering, which earned him the Nobel Prize in 1930. Got Nobel Prize in 1930 for his physics, and he discovered that when light travels a transparent material, so light travels in the transparent material and some of the deflected light changes wavelength. This phenomena subsequently known as Raman scattering. So, that is known as Raman scattering, and it is results from the Raman effect, and to commemorate it on February 28th is celebrated as National Science, because that had been found out in 28th February. That is why we are celebrating that as a Science Day in India, as a National Science Day in India. In 1954, India honoured him with the highest civilian award, the Bharat Ratna. He got Bharat Ratna in the year 1954. He got because of the scattering system he had made it, and the Raman effect he had found out. That day had been celebrated as our Indian Science Day. Okay children, I think you have been understood the lesson very clearly. We have 3 parts, and first part we learned that the importance of the river, and second part erosion, soil erosion and how to stop, and third part is explaining how water is very essential for a human being. And in a phase, water is how high is important in a phase, the same way water in the landscape is. And if we are using the water in a right way and we stop soil erosion and stopping the flowing water to the sea, we can make India a developed one. And so far we are having road and other transportation. Water transportation must be given important, and so that the nation will be flourishing and developed, and it will be very developed one. Okay children, we will end. Thank you children.